Good evening and welcome to the Coral Springs Museum of Art's Chatted Up series featuring exhibiting artists within our museum's collection. I'm your host, Petra Guiland, Interim Director of the Coral Springs Museum of Art, and tonight we will be speaking with CLoD. However, before we begin tonight's community event, the museum would like to thank Florida's Department of State, Division of Cultural Affairs, Broward County Cultural Division, and the Broward County Board of County Commissioners, the City of Coral Springs Museum of Art's members, and the museum's board members, Scott Brook, Joy Carter, Joshua Simmons, Sean Sarah, and Larry Vignola, whose support to the Coral Springs Museum of Art provides the local community engaging art experiences such as this evening's Chatted Up series. And many thanks to the dedicated staff of the Coral Springs Museum of Art. We hope you enjoy this evening's opportunity to ask the artists questions concerning their art. Please feel free to share questions throughout the presentation in the comment box below. Your questions will be asked during our Q&A session at the end of the presentation. And now, join me in welcoming to this evening's Chatted Up, CLoD. CLoD, my dear.
Hey, hi, how are you?
It is lovely to see you this evening, us curly girls.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is amazing.
Yeah, we are so excited that you are here tonight. What an amazing opportunity to be sitting here with you. Unfortunately, it's virtual, but you know what? Being able to have an opportunity to do this virtually allows others to have this opportunity. So we're glad that we're able to have this with you, with our audience, and with the museum's members. So we're really excited about that tonight. I want to talk to you about the exhibition that you recently had at the Coral Springs Museum of Art, and Be Like Water, right? This is an amazing exhibition that you had. It recently closed May 18th, and unfortunately, due to coronavirus, nobody was able to see it in person, which was really sad. However, yes.
But I have proof. Proof.
Yeah, there's the proof. The proof is there. It is right there. Yes. But the good news is that we were able to film the museum's exhibition virtually. It's on our website. For those who haven't seen it yet, we do ask that you go to the website, check out this amazing virtual exhibit. It's fantastic. It's just really, she's dynamic artist. Just really enjoy your art. So, but yeah, so tell us a little bit. I know that you came to the Coral Springs Museum of Art and you were really kind of discovered when we had our yearly juried exhibition inspired by, through that was the way you kind of connected to the Coral Springs Museum of Art, correct?
Yes.
So,
yeah, it all started probably 3 years ago. I used to be a TV producer. That was my career. I was actually pretty good at it, and I loved my job, really. One day at work, everything changed, and I just decided that my life couldn't end without me doing what it was good for me, serving me instead of other people. So I left for this trip around the world by myself, and in that trip in Phuket, I painted a series of pieces, and this piece Vámonos was born from that trip. When I came back to Miami, I remember I was ArtServe. Was one of the first institutions that I signed up as a emerging artist. I went to them for guidance and like a place to start, and they were amazing, guiding me through how to exhibit and connecting me with the curators. So one of their staff actually suggested, look, there's this competition. There's a juried competition at a museum, and you should join. And I was like, okay, but I actually went online, but the application had closed already. And but there was this one day that you guys will be receiving the pieces in person, and it was just one chance. So it was a really close, 4-hour window. So I grabbed two of my
Yes.
pieces that I painted in this trip, and I went to Coral Springs, which I've never been to before, and I live in 20 years in Miami, and it was they were picked for the show, both of them. So for me, this was my first juried show. So for me, that was already an accomplishment. To have been selected for a show in a museum, it was great for my career, and for me that was enough. That was it. That was the prize. It was to be selected for the show. My surprise came about 2 weeks later or so. It was probably a couple days before the show, and I was at the beach, I remember, and for somehow I got signal in the middle of the beach. And I was like, hello, hello, covering the way. And it was like, hi, CLoD, we're calling from the museum. We just want to make sure that you're coming for the exhibit inspired by, which is, in 2 days, because you were selected as the best in show. For me, it was like, what do you mean? Well, there was a jury and they selected your piece. Vamonos was selected as the best in show, and I was at all. I mean, I couldn't really believe what had just happened. I remember hanging up the phone and was like, oh my God, it's happening, But it was even more surprising when I got to the show 2 days after. Of course, I called my mom, my dad, my brothers and sisters. You have to come. I'm going to be in a museum and I want a prize. I have to come. So, but my surprise was actually when I got there, and the curation was amazing. And I was it was even more humble for me to have been selected as best in show. Actually, I am an emerging artist, and this was the first time I got a validation from an institution that will say, like, your work is good. There's something here. And it was the first, because up to that point it was just my friends and people who they're gonna tell you what you want to hear, and they'll they're pretty beautiful colors, but no curator had actually evaluated my job, my work. And it was really humble that in that exhibit, not only I got the winner selection as the best in show, but everybody, all the work was amazing. So it got me to to a place where I was a very important place for an artist, which is like, believe that your work is good, like believe in your work. It's and from then on, like, I started building on that foundation, and I have flourished. I consider that I have flourished as an artist just because I have that kind of like pat in the back, like, keep doing what you're doing. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really is. It's phenomenal. And again, we had that show, and I know that we'll be having something in the future, so we're really excited about that. But okay, so you told us how you got connected to the Coral Springs Museum of Art, how you got your show, but you started to touch a little bit about your travels, which I always find fascinating as a woman traveling on their own around the world for 1 year. These are sort of the paintings that flourished and were created. This was the fountain, all of the knowledge that you absorbed through this trip. And I want to rewind it just a bit. Mm-hmm. And I would love to hear a little bit more about your trip, about the around the world trip that you took that helped create pieces.
Well, this was January 2017. I decided the last week of December that I needed to do this trip. On January 2nd, I put my 2-week notice in the place that I was working as a TV producer. And on January 23rd, I took the first flight, the cheapest flight out of Miami, which was to Cuba. And I went to, I stayed in Cuba for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And then I started a journey of a 1 year solo trip around the world. And it was, I'm a mother of two, so it was not something that I took lightly. My son and daughter were 14 and 21 at the time. So to leaving my 14-year-old behind, it was very hard. But honestly, it was amazing for him, for his growth, for it was actually
Yeah.
the best year, the best grades in the whole, high school. It was during that year because he felt like he needed to be in charge. So it was very hard. And as if anyone is a parent, they know it was part of the journey to let go of everything and just pack a 15-kilo bag and probably two pair of pants, three t-shirts, like some sneakers, and that's it. And I went all over the world just like that. And how did I decide? I had no schedule. I just took the cheapest flight out of wherever I was,
Mhm.
and usually end up being great. And I didn't have a schedule or route because I wanted really to let this thing evolve as as my trip was evolving. If I made a schedule and everything from the first day that I was leaving, I mean, I wasn't following the cloud that I was becoming. So
Mhm.
actually, one of my projects for the trip was that I was going to paint one piece in every city. And
How many countries did you go to?
I went to a little, like, less than
30, right?
30 countries, yeah, in
So
this trip.
how many cities? That's a lot of cities if you went to 30 countries.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
just in Portugal, I went to like 6 cities in Portugal. So yeah, it all depended on the cities. There were places where like I just stayed there for a month and a half, like Argentina or India. I stayed it 2 months, but other places that I could move quickly.
Well, did you
And
complete the goal? Did you complete the goal of having a painting in every city?
well, I started in Cuba, and it was so difficult to find an art store in Cuba. It was like, forget it, it's not gonna happen. Eventually, I found one. It's called they call it, go to El Chino. El Chino knows, you ask him, and he had like green tempera,
Mhm.
like where the kids play with, and then green tempera, black acrylic, and then aqua. That's it. Three colors,
Wow.
and it was there. There were no brushes, so I started. So I painted my first piece with my hands. It was great. I was having so much fun. I ended up doing it. I did it in Cuba, in Mexico, and in Colombia, my three countries, but first three countries. But then eventually, I started having issues. Carrying my paint materials
Yeah.
from and city, so I have to buy everything all over again. And then the art regulations to shipping art back to Miami was a mess. So I decided, you know what, there's going to be a point in this trip that I'm going to dedicate to paint, but I'm just going to enjoy what is happening. So I'm just going to
Mhm.
flow with this. And what happened was, like, later on in this trip, around the 7th month, I was in India, and I had 4 months left of the journey. And it was, and I remember, like, sitting at the Ganges, like in the front of this famous Indian river, and I was, okay, they have 4 months left. What do I have? Do I really want to do? Um, that I cannot do back in Miami when I go back to my schedule, back to normal. And
Mhm.
I always wanted to paint. Like, painting was something that I did, some weeknights, once the kids were back in bed, or a full Saturday, but it was never more than that. I had a full-time job, and I was a machine. I was just running and running and running with the getting early to work, going out late, and going out late, not partying, just working,
Working late.
and working late, and then the gym and the supermarket and the pharmacy. It was like never ending
Yeah.
cycle. Um, but there was no time to live. So I started picking up painting at night because it was the only thing that feels like it was feeding my soul in some way. But I always wanted to feel what it was like to paint for weeks on end. It was, I just want to paint. I just want to feel. I want to know how that feels. So I dedicated the last 3 months of this journey to paint, and I set up studios in Kathmandu, which was the closest and cheapest ticket out of India. Kathmandu was my first studio, and after that was Thailand for 2 months, and it was just, once I started painting and I had that feeling, I could just dive in. I did nothing but paint for those 3 months, and it was, and once you can never come back. Like, you can never come back to the routine of living a normal life, of just paying bills and going to work. Because I felt that I felt that spark, and I realized, while I was painting, I was sobbing, and I had this feeling of, oh my God, this is a connection bigger than myself. It was, this is what I'm meant to, this is what I'm here. It was a connection that I've never felt in my life. So yeah, after, when I came back to Miami, it was like, there's no way I'm going back to corporate. This is what I need to do.
It was your calling, for sure. Yeah. Okay, so you ended up in Phuket, right?
Yes.
Tell us the last month or so, maybe it was 2, but the last month that you were in Phuket. This is where you were coming to a close on your trip, and you had that final piece, and the piece that you worked on was Vamonos. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so in Phuket, my first studio was in Kathmandu, and it was like the first time I painted like big formats. It was the first time I was like getting into this like for days on end, for a whole month. So I was kind of scared, I was stepping into the water, trying different colors, just like feeling having a feeling about the whole painting. But then in Phuket, I went wild. I was like, the bigger, the better. I went for the biggest canvas I could find. I was not afraid mixing colors. I was just, I was widely creative.
And now you have paintings that are 13 feet by 6 feet. I mean, you started out with these tiny things, and now you've got these massive expressions of art. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's where I feel more in my element. My element is just big and free to express. I also feel that the bigger I paint, the more committed I am with what I create. It's like I'm not shy anymore of my creation. It's like, boom, I'm out there. It's like statement, and I'm not afraid of it. So, yeah, it's just beautiful. The process is beautiful. So where were we?
We were talking about the amazing Vamonos and the dichotomy of that piece.
Yeah, exactly. So, by the time I finish, I finished my stay in Thailand. I have painted over 20 pieces, large format pieces, and it was like I couldn't even ask anyone. I will go out of my bungalow and I'll ask, like, "Hey, lady, come here. What do you think?" And it's like, "Pretty, very pretty, very pretty." So I had no really honest opinion.
Yeah.
So, but I was looking at it and was like, I think this is really good. So I wrapped everything up, and because I thought about leaving everything behind, but I was like, okay, no, I think I have something here. So I wrapped everything like in like it looks like a Turkish rug wrapped up, and I sent it to Miami to wait for me while I finished my trip, my round back. I was going to be back in like less than a month. So once I got back to my bungalow after I sent this huge piece, I have a little piece of canvas left, and like a scrap. And it was like, oh wow, this is small enough that I can carry it in my suitcase. okay, this is going to be the last piece of this journey. It was not even the last piece of this collection. It was the last piece of this journey, of the whole a year of traveling. And and it was and once I started painting, I realized it was my male and my female joining together in one. So, and this is what usually happened with my pieces. I paint it, and then they speak back to me, and they tell me what they're about. And in this case, it was like that. It was like, oh my God, this is my feminine self and my masculine self. My masculine self, the drive, I can do this on my own. I'm fearless and whatever. And then my feminine side, which was like a rebirth in some way of like my creative side and be touched to my creativity, because I was for so many years a machine. It was like do, but not much of being and create. So I call it Vamonos, because it's okay, we're wrapping this up, let's go. It's like it's time to go back to and start creating what comes next. And this was a piece. Actually, I have a presentation. You want me to show it to everybody?
Yes, please share it.
Yeah.
We'd love to see it. We'd love to see it.
Let me show this presentations right there. There you go.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. So I paint what we all perceive, but no one speaks of. This is my artist statement. And honestly, I try to incorporate this to every piece that I make. There is so much information about what people do but not say, and the most important, the most beautiful part of it is that we all know it. We're all aware of that universal truth, but we, for some reason, don't like to speak about it. So I try to bring it to the front. So I have some pictures here of how it all started. Just a few snaps of like, oh, my moment is sitting in front of the Ganges and realizing like, okay, what is it that I really want to do the last 4 months of this journey. So it was a 1 year traveling by myself, and I visited over 30 countries. Up there was, these are three of my favorite places for the whole year. It was India, Turkey, and Peru. I was in the Salar de Maras in the Sacred Valley in Peru, and this was in the Blue Mosque, and it was so overwhelmingly beautiful. I'm sure I couldn't take pictures, but who cares? so, so just a small snapshot of my studio in Thailand. I remember hunting for a bungalow where if I messed up, the walls with paint, nobody would care. And this was like a concrete 4-wall bungalow. It was probably the size of my studio right now. And this image and next to it is like the actual roll of pieces that I shipped back to Miami. As you can tell, I said bungalow for a month was just $100, and to ship this thing, it was 700. For me, it was like a fortune. I hadn't spent that much money probably in 2 months and 3 months or whatever. So so it was a real. So do I really want to do it? It was yeah. There was something in the back of my head that was like, okay, let's try this, because at that point in my life, I hadn't really decided that I was going to be a full-time artist. And as you can see on my left side, I have two pieces. Actually, those pieces are like 50 something by 70 something. They're actually large scale as well. And this is basically the way I paint. I either have a huge paint covering everything that will take all of my time. I mean, the fact that I'm just talking about not having to wait for it to dry. So I'm continuously working. So if it's not in one piece, I jump to another one. So I usually have 2, 3, 4 pieces at the same time, or one huge piece, which what I've been doing lately, and I enjoy it so much. And this was the piece that made it all happen. This was the little 37 by 25, and it was called Vámonos. It was the Best in Show winner for during the Inspired by jury show in February 2019. Like it was one of my favorite pieces back there, and now actually I'm looking at it right now because it's right in front of me, and it's so special for me. It's for so many reasons, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So actually, this piece, because I got this piece, the prize of that of winning the Best in Show was to have your own solo show at a museum. Can you imagine my face? I'm like, oh my God, on top of everything, I'm going to have a solo show in a museum. It was overwhelming. I had really worked closely with a museum at that point, and the exhibit was like in a year, in March 2020. So I was like, oh my God, I can't believe how much I'm going to change, because I changed from piece to my work, my style, like changed from piece to piece. So I wonder how am I going to be painting in a year? So let me show you what happened. So I became more, yeah, my work became more simpler in a way, I guess, and more complex in other ways. This is exhibit was called Be Like Water. Be Like Water talk about the uh, the choice you have of just flow with whatever happens in life. To be like water is to adapt. It's to not resist of whatever comes your way. You just, if it's a rock, we just, we'll go around it. If it's a ditch, well, we go down and then we'll go up and then we'll fill up and go up again. So it's basically it's kind of a mantra for me right now, and what I've discovered is like the more I flow with that statement, the easier and the most beautiful it gets to live. So strongly recommended. Like someone said that Bruce Lee kept saying that all the time, so yes, Bruce Lee was right. This piece actually is called Don't Judge Me, Love Me. And it talks about how love can be conditioned, like when you judge, and let's be honest, I'm talking about me. When I judge my dad for being, you know superstitious, or to be naive, or to be or to have a strong character, when I criticize all of that, I'm conditioning my love to him, to my son, to my mom, to my friend. So, and once I noticed that, it was like so obvious, like judgment is actually it's actually slows down the process of love. And when you take it out, everything is so natural. It just flows and becomes inevitable. So that was that, and that was the first piece I made actually from the collection. That's why it's actually in the it's like the main, like the image of the
Yeah,
exhibit actually. Hmm.
it's the market. Yeah, the what we use to market. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. So flow is the second piece. I painted actually this one along with Don't Judge Me, Love Me. These pieces, both of them, are 48 by 48 inches. And my approach was very simple with them. I try to use the fewer colors, and to focus on eh, el trazo. How do you say that in English? Like the stroke and the
Yeah.
combination of color. Flow, it's a little bit more, touching the point of being like water. When you when you flow, you really discover so many shades about yourself, about your personality. You become much more. Um, like deep, really, because you find so many layers about yourself that you hadn't discovered because you were too busy just, resisting and like trying to go your way. Boundaries. So boundaries is a piece, and actually I made those three pieces together, of course. Again, using color and this is the pastel sticks that I use to outline my figures. Um, Boundaries was born out of a discussion I had with my close friend, right? And I was discovering how, I mean, I've lived my whole life with this, but it was just at this point that I was actually noticing that we all have these boundaries, and like our experience in life with other humans is all about founding each other boundaries. It's with your friends, with your kids, with your parents, your spouse. um, when you go too far, you find like resistance, and then you go back, and then you find you discover your own boundaries as well. So that dance, it's what this video is all about. Yeah, and I started using black in the background. I love that. So actually this piece, I have to say it, this image does not make it, justice, because it's really in person. It's actually a 48 by 60. It's a medium in the larger size. And I wanted also to use it, like, to be simple in the image, like do not use many colors, but just tell a story with like the shapes and like these whimsical creatures that I come up with. Honestly, these people, they just show up in my head. I mean, they've always been there. I remember doodling in math class, and I was making these people. Maybe it was a less complicated version of it, but they were there. They have been with me for my whole life, and now it's like my team. They're actually humans. They're not. They intend to represent human behavior, and how some of us are angry, and some of us are in pain, and some of us are just numb in life, and some of us are like hungry for more, and some of us are in love, and some of us are resistant to everything that happens around, and some of others are in flow and are in fear. So anyway, we all have our processes, and we have to respect each other's timing and process. And when you do that, uh, you save so much energy. Oh my God, there's so much energy that goes into trying to make people do what you want them to do. It's
Yeah.
it's not it's exhausting, really. And when just let them be who they are without you trying to change them, it's so easy. So this is what the piece is about. And actually, this actually was I made this video along with the respect the process, and the name of this one is "Are You Living or Dying?" Um, until some point in my life, I was just dying. I had just few days left to live. Um, I was just too busy doing and not being. And and now that I'm in the other side of the river, I kind of look back and I can see where I was and where so many of the people I love are right now. But 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 sadly, or fortunately, who knows, we all have our timing. It's like you cannot force a consciousness in anyone who's not ready to see it and to be aware of what life is really all about. So because I remember being there and having people talk to me about this truth and awareness and consciousness, and for me it was crap. For me it was like, what do you mean? I don't understand you. So it was not my time. And and now I from my perspective right now is I just try to put some seeds and just let the universe do the rest, the rest of the work. But all my pieces have that question, and or like that lead into a, I kind of show you a door where you can walk through it or not, and then make your own story, because the answer of these questions is really up to you. And this is the trifecta of those three that I painted, of course, at the same time. I mean, simultaneously, and that we're actually feeding of each other. This piece actually came later on because it actually has an underpainting. I tried something different before, and I was resisting trying to make it work and to be perfect. And then at some point, I was, what, this is not working, and I just covered the whole thing in blue. And what happened was that whatever came after, and whatever surfaced from that underpainting was a piece that was full of um, scratches and like uneven painting surfaces, and like you actually can see some of the under. Of course, this picture does not makes it gives it justice, but it's not smooth and perfect like the other two. So, but I like it even more because it has like history. It has, this one actually has a much more pain, and when I say ugly and perfect, it's like to actually appreciate what a raggedy car or an old house, uh, the beauty in all of it. I was actually driving by a neighborhood because now, for some reason, I don't know, I want a house. I always lived in an apartment and never wanted to live in a house. And for some reason, lately, I want to live in a house. Okay, I don't know. So I started looking around in a neighborhood, and I pointed to that house. I was like, wow, that house is a mess. And my 18-year-old son told me back, Mom, that is someone's home. And I was like, man, it's so beautiful how you keep learning every day. And it's true, the the your home has a history around it. So yeah, in valuing it, it's just a part of being happier, really, and not just discard something because it's not pretty and you want something new that has no soul, no history, no background. So, okay, and then we come to education. Do you have any questions about so far, or you want me to keep going?
Yeah,
Okay,
oh, please keep going. Yes, this
okay,
is
okay,
great.
okay.
Phenomenal.
No, awesome. So education. Actually, this one of like I haven't mentioned it, but some of those pieces were favorite. But this is my most favorite piece. It's called education. Uh, this actually, as you can tell, there's this element about the Guernica from Picasso, and 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 this relationship between a father and a son, and this third figure that is like going in, probably like distancing herself from this a father and son figure that are in conflict. Um, of course, I discovered all of this after I finished the piece, right? I started painting. I usually don't plan my pieces. I kind of like have a sketchbook where I outline stuff, and I would just, when I'm on the phone or where I'm, after deep meditation, I would just start making figures, and I listening to like vibrational music, and I'm just gonna try to connect, try to be a clear channel for whatever comes. So with those outlines, I just jumped to the canvas, and I probably made a pencil outline, but then I jump and just see where it goes. And the mixing of colors and textures then tells me back a story. In this case, when I saw it back, was like, wow, um, the piece was actually telling me, do as I say, not as I do. And that meant so much. It's about educating not only our kids, it's like educations in our communities, in our government, in our families. Um, I love you, but let me hit you. You know, it's I love you, but I criticize everything about you. Um, yeah, we have to stop.
Powerful.
Yeah, we have to stop putting so much weight in our words and more in what we do, what we actually mean. You know. Well, this actually is my most favorite of my favorite pieces. It's called Falling. It's actually part of the museum collection. I was a donation that I did after the show, and it's special for me for some reason. I dreamt about this piece. It was a fall. It was this character who was falling, but it was a fall into rest, into flow. The person who was flowing who was falling was actually like when you fall into a cloud or something. She was happy just to let it go, and she knew she was safe. And it's so funny to notice that I'm talking about a female person, and it was and that's why I incorporated pink, because although it looked androgynous, like it didn't look like anything. The energy was very feminine, and had her hands like up close to me, and then her head was almost falling behind the way it looks. It was so smooth, such a smooth fall. It felt, actually I can feel this painting more than I can, tell about it. Yeah, so it's actually a powerful piece when you see it in persons, because
It really is. It's an incredible piece. And again, we are so thankful to have this piece as part of our collection. It's really phenomenal. And it's a big piece too. It really envelops you when you're standing next to it.
Oh, come on. It's my privilege to be part of that. Okay. So that was actually, so this is I put like most of the pieces. Actually the pieces I'm most proud of, probably. But there were a few other pieces in the collection. Actually, you can actually see all of the exhibit in the virtual tour that is in the website. Actually, the museum put up like an awesome virtual tour that you can see everything like up in the walls, lighted pretty with beautiful lighting and everything. So I wanted to show you a little bit, some face action so you can see who am I. And I wanted to show you a little bit of the things that I'm working on, like about this quarantine. The exhibit was we put up the exhibit. It was so funny. We put up the exhibit, I remember, March 13. And it was probably March 15 when you
It
called me,
was.
Petra,
Yeah.
like, CLoD, unfortunately, the city has, we have to close the museum. And it was like, honestly, for me, it was like, okay, talking about this flow thing, I was like, okay, everything happens for a reason. I'm sure it's just meant to be that way. So the exhibit was there for 3 months. No, actually, yeah, 2 months and something. And actually, everybody was running wild, trying to figure out about this coronavirus, and I just locked myself at home and for a couple of weeks. But then soon I realized that I couldn't work at home with my family. So I came back to the studio, and actually let me show you that piece first, right? I came back to the studio,
Yeah.
and I filled the wall with like a canvas. Like, this is how big my studio is wide. It's like I just spread that canvas from wall to wall. And it was, literally exactly how wide my studio is. And I just started expressing there everything that it was happening. I had that feeling of like, of this thing being alive, this uh, not COVID, but the process of us, figuring out what was going on. Like, then there was so much fear. There were some people just going in isolation, just protecting their family. The media were bombarding us with information about this virus that we didn't know apparently was killing us, and all the conspiracies started coming, and then they're like, some people were enjoying the break and some people were like suffering because they have never faced each other, faced themselves. When you suddenly you have the corner office and your social schedule is booked back to back, and you have you don't even have time for your family, and they take all of that away. At some point you have to figure out who are you. They take your job, they take your parties, they take your events, social events, and like meetings and conferences, and then you get to face yourself. And actually I had a few super interesting conversations with people that thought they had looked at themselves, and they just realized they hadn't. So if you see in this piece, you can see the weak, you can see the isolated, you see the mother and the kid afraid, the people reaching out for help, the desperate, the people who does not believe, chill, what's the problem, and then spreading the virus all over. And then there's this image, and as all of my work, this piece, after I finish it, or when it started taking shape, I was like, what is that creature in the corner? In the upper left corner, I saw this being, and it was like, oh my God, it's so cool. It's like a being from a different place. It looks different, like from like an extraterrestrial being, like looking at us. And it was like exactly the feeling I had about the whole experience, about the whole virus. It's like I think we've been tested, or someone is looking at us to see how do we behave if we agree to just work together and stop worrying about boundaries and money and like what is really important, right? And letting the earth heal. And there was so many things happening at the same time that I wanted to put everything in there, and it was like it was my best shot at it. And it's a huge piece. It's a 6 foot by 13 feet wide. After I finished that, while it was drying, you need to dry and put some varnish on it. Just to put that varnish was like a full day of work to that piece. And while that was happening, I started working in other pieces, following the same feeling. Quarantine. This is a 48 by 48. It was actually a piece it was half done, and I was never happy with this piece. I was like, there's something else. I don't like it. And then, I was like, okay, let's sit down and talk. And I just started working in this piece, and then it was this person that I have talked to, in different humans. Um, that person, I mean, that how do I express it? That realization, it's not a person, it's like a realization that you hadn't really dedicated time for yourself in your whole life. And this actual quarantine made you look at yourself in the mirror and realize, where do you start and where do you finish? Because that mix with your social life and your work, and sometimes the boundaries are blurred and you don't really see what is it that you want. Not what you have to do. What is it that you want? Who you are without the business card. Um, so so the outcome was I didn't want to see me, and it was I didn't want to see me because you didn't like what you saw, or you didn't want to see you, and you because you realized that. It's kind of again a door where you can enter, and if you want to. And this one too close, it was just this dynamic that we have to now live with, because I don't think the COVID is going anywhere soon. We are humans that need to touch and be close and have contact, and then but there's some humans that have fear and they don't want you to close, and then but the other ones are reaching out to you. Um, so it's this one talks about the dynamic of that we are faced, and we have to somehow try to learn how to live with it. So well, pandemia again. um I wanted to put it at the end, so like boom, like for
It's
impact.
it's always going to be impactful. It's what we're
For
living.
impact, but yeah, but the truth is that was the first piece. So actually, oh, I included pandemia here with me, so you have an idea of the size of it, because numbers mean nothing really for some people. And then some of the work that I do, I work on commissions. This lips thing that I have going on, I don't know, people just love it. I start using
I
those
love
as
it
lip.
too.
Yeah, I started using those in my female characters as lips. But then I don't know, one day I start just making lips, and people just went crazy for it, and I was like, oh my god, it's amazing, because some people see hearts, other people see lips, but in either case they just express love, and it's all about sharing and expression and give it to people, right? So I've made this actually Winwood wall. I haven't talked to you about that actually, Petra, but actually it was a Super Bowl Friday, and I had a bunch of stuff to do in the studio, which you always have stuff to do, but it was nothing that I really had to finish that day. And I had this thought in my mind, just that feeling when you wake up and you're half asleep, but you're not really awake. And at that point I had the feeling of like it would be nice to have a wall in Winwood this weekend. It was like somebody like said that to me like in my ear. And I woke up, I saw my calendar, there was nothing going on that day. Okay, I was like, okay, I have stuff to do, but I can't wait. I'm gonna do a mural in Winwood. So I got in my car, went to Home Depot, bought the paint, and went to Winwood. I didn't have a wall. I didn't have a wall or
Yeah, you
asked
tell me this
anyone
story. This is
or
great.
asked anyone or help to paint the mural. I was like, I was going to do that by myself, find a place. And the funny thing was like the perfect wall was available for me. I went there, it's like it's between artists in Winwood. It's like a whole um it's all out of respect. If someone puts up a mural, no one really is supposed to paint on it. It's a lack of respect for the
Mm.
work of another artist. And of course, there are some artists that they can do whatever they want. So it's okay. So, but like going in, me as an emerging artist looking for my first mural, I didn't want to pace anyone really. So I was just looking for a white wall, so a wall that nobody wanted. And for my surprise, the hottest wall in Winwood across from Joey's, like next to Winwood Walls,
Mhm.
it was white, painted it white, and tagged with like graffitis, like those like people who tag with signatures. But it was not a mural. And it was perfect because it was small. It was the perfect size for me to be actually be completed by myself. And I just parked and went into it was a gallery. It was where Ascaso Gallery was. And I just walk in, and the owner of the gallery was standing at the door, and I was like, "Hi, nice meeting you, whatever." And it was so funny. I was like, "I can't believe this is happening." And he's like, "Oh, look, I'm an artist, and I would love to paint this wall." I show him what I was planning to do, and he's like, "Well, you know what? There's this thing. I'm moving today.
Oh my gosh.
I cannot, I cannot authorize you because it's not my place anymore. I'm moving out. These new people are coming in tomorrow to take the place." But then he goes like, "You know what? How many people asked me before they tag my walls in Wynwood? Like, no one. You're the first artist I ever asked. So you know what? Paint your wall, girl.
That's
Have
right.
your wall. You probably have it, as you'll have probably a week before the new owners paint everything, but go for it." And I was like, perfect. This is all I need. I just needed for how you say, for the Super Bowl weekend. It was
Mhm.
hype, whatever.
Right.
What happened afterwards was incredible. I mean, the people were like, "You're the one who painted that wall?" I mean, it was a famous wall. Actually, you would go to Wynwood Walls, and it was like one of the main walls was that. And it was just there for 2 weeks. Actually, it was covered in like gray, in like dark gray on Valentine's Day of all days, if you can believe it. You know,
Mm.
people were actually going to take a photo in front of the walls with their families, and it was like they covered it at 2:30 p.m. So nobody could. Yeah, but it lasted what it did, and it made a huge impact. There's a small piece corner of my studio right there. Actually, you can see the mask, the lighting that I'm using, my background right now.
Yeah, yeah, I
um,
see it.
yeah, a little piece of the museum show. So yeah, that was it. Thank you so much for having me. This is my info if you guys want to see any more of my work. um yeah.
Great. Yeah, it's fantastic. No, I mean, you and I have chatted multiple times about your art leading up to this, hearing your stories. Every single time I hear your story, it's always engaging and
Mhm.
enthralling. I'm living vicariously through your own travel stories. No, it is interesting though. Just harking back to the pandemic. Someone did
Mhm.
ask. One of our viewers this evening was asking about the coronavirus and how
Yeah.
coronavirus has affected your art, and it's something that has come up with another artist that we had before you. How has coronavirus affected? And you can see very clearly. And I remember the day you sent that email about pandemia,
Yeah.
and we had we had closed 2 weeks earlier, and literally like a week and a half later, you're sending me a photograph of a piece of art that's 13 feet by 6 feet, and I'm thinking, did she just paint this piece in the last week and a half? And it
I
wasn't
did.
until about maybe a week and a half, a couple of days ago, I think you told me, yeah, oh yeah, I did it in like 2 weeks, but that's exaggerating. So it was more like a week and a half, and I thought,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's incredible. I mean, it's such a powerful piece. And I think it really encapsulates what we're going through when we're going through this pandemic. And
Yeah.
in particular, the first 2 weeks to really a month, we were just so scatterbrained and not knowing
Yeah.
what was
We had
happening.
no idea. Yeah.
No idea, but we knew people were dying, and we
Hmm.
were all very scared going through what was going to happen or what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, really incredible pieces. So now I'm gonna open it up to the audience. I know we do have a few questions.
Yeah.
One of
Bring
the
it on.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the questions this evening from one of our Facebook viewers was, "What's the largest painting you've painted?" And it sounds like it might be Pandemia. Is that correct?
Well, yes. Before that was 8 foot by 10,
Mm-hmm.
um, that I painted actually in New York. But I think, yeah, Pandemia is the one that the largest so far, I think. Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you give me a bigger studio, I'll paint a bigger piece.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
You just
mean,
keep growing. The
don't
bigger the
worry.
studio, you just fill it up
Yeah,
and grow. Yeah. I think that's great. So
I'm
another.
just what
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, the what is limiting me is like the size of my walls. If you have, the bigger, the better for me. Yeah.
I agree. I agree. Someone
That's
else
my
from our
element.
audience
Yeah.
had
Hmm.
asked about how art was really sort of essential when you knew art was an essential part of your life. You mentioned earlier on this evening how when you were younger, you were in class doodling, and that these characters who are kind of a part of you
Yeah.
on a cellular level were part of you when you were young. So do you feel as though that was an essential part of who you were when you were younger, around that age too?
Well, you're touching into some waters, because all of this happened because, so I divorced. Um, and when you divorce as a woman, you need some time to find yourself again. It's like, who am I? I was the mother of these kids and the wife of this man for so long that you kind of like lose track of what you really like, to the restaurant that you really like, the place that you want to go on vacation. So I experimented so much of looking that person. It was like, but then there was so many pressures around of what I should do, and what I'm supposed to behave as a mother of two, single mother of two. It was like, it was confusing, right? And so I had that feeling of like, okay, let's go back to basics. Like, let's rewind the tape and find out where everything started messing up. Where, the essence of me is it's in here, it's there, but there's so much crap on top of it that you can really see it. So
Yeah.
actually, this is so funny. I'm going to show you this. I'm literally going to show you this in live. I'm going to show
Yes,
you.
show us,
I
please,
have
Claude.
these. I
Tell our
have these.
viewers.
Yeah, yeah. I have these in my studio. Next to, I have like the chair where I sit and talk to the painting, and then behind my chair is these two pictures, like me, because okay, there's these two images of like, wait, it's weird. The angle is weird, but if you can see this one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here, it's my little self. Like when I saw this image, it was like, oh, there you are. There you are. This is me not
That's
caring about
you,
anything. That's me.
right?
That's, wild, just essence.
Authentic. Yes.
And
Mhm.
then here, when I saw this image, it was like, oh, they got to you, you know?
Mhm.
They got to you. It's like, how are you supposed to look? How do you, it was like my 14, 15-year-old self, like, I don't know, probably, yeah, 13, 14 years old. It was like, they got to me. So
Yeah.
I keep these two images in my studio along with my lover Picasso and my dad and my little brothers and sisters, to remind myself that I always have to paint from the heart of that little girl.
Yeah.
And it was like, and it was so beautiful to discover that, because to not discover, it was like to connect with that. But so, because it was awesome after that, it was like perfect. Anytime I have any doubts, I just have to connect with her. She's just waiting there, she's
She's
just
there
waiting
for
for
you.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's
and
there
and
for
i
you when you
can
need
and I can feel her all the time. It's like when I question, oh, what am I doing, it's like, what would you do? And that's the right answer always. So
So this is my
so yeah.
question to you, my personal question to you. You have your younger self, your younger female anima that supports
Hmm.
you with this art. There aren't a lot of, let me ask you this. Who was one of those female artists that influenced you? There aren't, I think we've had this conversation before.
Yeah,
And there aren't a lot of major, you said major league female artists. It's a male
there
dominated
aren't any,
society.
really. There aren't any.
Yeah.
I I'm not. I mean, I'm not very fluent in art history. I know the basics, and I'm not. I mean, I'm not trying to show off or anything. But other than Georgia O'Keeffe and Frida Kahlo, like You don't have any big names like in history right now. And I don't think it's because they were not female artists. I think um, I don't know. Of course, what women were living in the 1900s is not the same as where we're living right
Right.
now. But if you walk into, I challenge everybody, walk into a gallery and ask, how many female artists do you represent? Compared to male artists, like what is the percentage of female and male artists that you represent? And it's like, it's not 60-40, it's not 70-30, it's 95% male
Yeah.
and just 5% female.
Yeah.
It's
It's
insane.
really interesting.
It doesn't make any sense. We as women are in touch with our creativity as, you know, as no one is. We create life. We are in
Yeah.
touch with our feelings, and people complain about it. But it's just like, you know,
Hey.
yeah, with just a bundle of creation, and the fact that the what's really commercial is the male artists says a lot about like the how important it is to a gallery to support female artists and to promote that. Like honestly, here in Miami, you know how it is. People want to buy the famous artists, the people who everybody has, and it's like it's okay. It's Miami. We live with it. We know how it is, but they all want the next hot thing.
Hmm.
And the museums and galleries are really in charge of that. Really, they educate the the consumer as well.
Hmm.
So I'm like eternally grateful to the museum because, after as an artist, after have a museum show, you're like, "Mm." And I don't really care, and I mean, it's not about like, ooh, being like this. I
Yeah.
have this huge resume. I mean, I don't have 10 years painting like 100, like full-time artist. It's just been like 4 years. But people will evaluate you based on where did you graduated from, how many exhibits you have in the museum, who your collectors are, and it's great, it's good, because that means that now that I am in this level, whatever that means, I'm gonna have some doors open for me. But if it wasn't for opportunities like the ones that the museum offered, like with exhibits, juried exhibit, like it's inspired by, it will be very difficult for and like a new artist like me to have opportunities. Because
But
let's be honest, there are a lot of great artists. It's just
I will
about how
say
you
though,
move around.
that I think one of the things that this whole presentation and this chatted up series tonight has talked about and that you've touched on is the importance of listening to your heart and following
Yeah,
what it's saying to you. Because if you
yeah,
hadn't, you and I would not be chatting it up right now. So,
totally. Yeah,
right? So
I live by, honestly.
you
It
have
has,
to.
yeah,
You
it
have
has
to
proven,
follow that
it has
calling.
proven over and over and over again that is just the way that is natural, that it flows.
You and I, as I've mentioned before, over and over again, you and I can chat all night long. You and I have such a rapport with one another, and
Yeah.
I think having come from both Latin backgrounds, we can just chat it up all night long. But we do have to come and take it to a close. I do want to thank you, CLoD. This was amazing. I can't wait to get together with you at some point over a cup of coffee and come over to your studio and take a look at it. And I know that we're going to see you soon in the next couple of years at the
Yeah,
museum.
in the museum. Yeah.
Join us. I know it's going to be an exciting show. We want to go ahead and thank all of our viewers from Facebook Live and YouTube Live. And we hope that you'll join us for the third installment of Chatted Up series on Thursday, June 25th at 8 p.m., 5 Pacific, when we speak with former drummer of the Grateful Dead, current drummer of Dead and Company, and vibrational expressionist, Mickey Hart. We want to thank you again for joining us at the Coral Springs Museum of Art's Chat It Up series. And we hope that next time you'll join us again and chat it up with us. Have a wonderful evening. And thank you so much. Thank you again, Claude. Good night, everybody. Take care.